The Paladin in Mr. Pandaria goes through some massive changes. From the addition of Denounce for Holy Paladins, which is absolutely amazing in PvP, where on a short 1.5 second cast time it deals holy damage and prevents the target from being able to do crits for 4 seconds, to all 3 specs getting Blinding Light, which is a 2-minute cooldown, and it blinds all targets within 10 yards, causing them to wander disorientated for 6 seconds, so for all 3 specs being able to use this essentially as a mass interrupt is particularly nice. All healers' dispels change, so don't just worry when you see Cleanse and you see that it's got an 8-second cooldown now. This applies to everybody with a dispel. Blessing of Might being reworked to give him Mastery now, which at level 90 is a whopping 3000 Mastery. Divine Plea no longer reducing your healing output while you've got it up, and it scales with your spirit now, but will always give you 12% of your maximum mana as a bare minimum. Guardian of the Ancient King having its cooldown reduced to now be a 3-minute cooldown instead of a long 5-minute cooldown, and it's actually so much better now for Holy as well compared to what it was in Cataclysm, whereas it stays pretty much the same for both Ret and Protection. Rather than it being limited to a certain amount of healing spells, now instead it just gives you 10% haste and causes all of your heals to heal for an additional 100%. 3 amazing level 90 talents being Holy Prism, Light's Hammer and Execution Sentence, with Execution Sentence in particular looking absolutely fantastic. Holy Prism's only on a 20-second cooldown and does a reasonable amount of AoE damage if you cast it as a single target heal on a party member, or it does a reasonable amount of single target damage if you cast it on an enemy and then causes it to AoE heal to 5 nearby friendlies. Light's Hammer is just amazing for stacked AoE damage or AoE healing if you're all stood together, and Execution Sentence just looks fantastic, again on a 1-minute cooldown, and it's either going to do a slow amount of healing over 10 seconds with an explosion of healing at the end, or it will do the same in damage if you cast it on an enemy. As minor as it seems, even the rework to Hand of Salvation now, where instead of it just reducing threat over time, it now completely removes all threat for the full 10 seconds that it's up. The addition of Emancipate, which has absolutely no cooldown at all and is a Retribution only ability, but you're no longer limited to only using Hand of Freedom to break movement impairing effects. You've literally got an ability that you can spam and constantly remove movement impairing effects, but it is pretty expensive, being 9000 mana, which is particularly expensive when you're a Ret Paladin with 60k mana. Daybreak for Holy Paladins even sees a really good change as well, where in Cataclysm it causes your Holy Shock to not trigger its cooldown. Instead now, after casting a Holy Radiance, your next Holy Shock will also AoE heal all targets within 10 yards of the target, for an amount equal to 75% of the original healing done. It is worth mentioning though in Mr. Pandaria, Holy Radiance has had the hot portion of it removed, so Daybreak with your AoE Holy Shock really just makes up for this. An Eternal Flame is an absolutely amazing talent which replaces Word of Glory, and as a Holy Paladin you're going to be putting these across the raid. It's going to be pretty much what you're using the majority of your Holy Power on, and even as a Protection Paladin you're using this for tons of self-healing, and even helping the raid out by throwing them around on other people as well. So you can see there's tons of changes to the Paladin, and I want to talk about my top 10 changes for the Paladin in Mr. Pandaria, and none of that we just spoke about even made it on the list. So coming in at number 1 has got to be Boundless Conviction. Now you get this as all 3 specs of Paladin, and basically what it does is gives you 2 extra holy power. So now you've got 5 in total. It just feels a lot more like combo points for a rogue, for example. Now you'll never be able to consume more than 3. If we was to use Retribution Paladin as an example, it does just mean you can get to 5 before you use cooldowns, hit a really big Templar's Verdict, and then you've only got to do 1 filler before you can Templar's Verdict again. Or if you was a Holy Paladin and you know big AoE healing's about to come in, you can get to 5, use a Light of Dawn, a very quick Holy Shock, and boom, you're ready to Light of Dawn again. Just being able to play around with having 5 Holy Power feels absolutely fantastic and a really, really good addition to all 3 Paladin specs. Next up at number 2 is Sanctity of Battle. Now, if you've played a Retribution Paladin in Cataclysm, this will be nothing new to you, and it actually works pretty much exactly the same way, but all 3 specs take advantage of this now. And this talent is actually kind of the reason why Protection will scale particularly well towards the back end of the expansion, but not be too good right at the start. So what this does is causes melee haste effects to lower the cooldown and global cooldown of Judgment, Crusader Strike, Hammer of the Righteous, Exorcism, and Hammer of Wrath. Now that's specifically as Rep Paladin. For Holy Paladin, it's obviously your important abilities that have the global cooldown and the cooldown reduced, so the important addition to this would of course be Holy Shock. And then for Protection, it's all your main abilities, so the additions on here that you'll be bothered about are things like Consecration, Holy Wrath, Avenger's Shield, and Shield of the Righteous. So like I say, this talent is really the primary reason why Protection Paladin scales so well. Because as you get massive amounts of haste, the cooldown on your holy power generators is so low, and you're getting procs to reset things like Avenger's Shield as well, that you're just flowing through that holy power generation and spending to the point where it feels incredibly strong. Overall, Sanctity of Battle is a great addition, and all three specs really take advantage of it. Next up is a quick one at number 3, and that's Judgment. Now for both Retribution and Protection, Judgment now gives holy power. Now I'm sure if you play Paladin in Cataclysm, you'll be used to this from the tier set bonus, where Judgment generates 1 holy power. Well, it's now baseline. It doesn't generate holy power for holy, it is only Protection and Retribution, but it's just another one of those nice quality of life changes where you kind of got used to it with a tier set bonus, where you haven't got to worry about losing the tier set bonus. It's just baked into Judgment now. Coming in at number 4 is actually just Retribution in general, because it changes a lot and you really do need to know about it. You gain and spend holy power so much faster in Mist of Pandaria that it just feels absolutely fantastic to play. Basically, everything that is not a spender is going to give you holy power. Not only this, you're also going to be gaining an ability that you would ordinarily associate with a Protection Paladin, because you now have a single target holy power builder in Crusader Strike, and you have an AoE holy power builder in Hammer of Righteous. Now both of these share a cooldown, so you can only use one or the other, and of course depending on how much haste you've got, depends on how often you can press it, but on single target you're going to be building holy power with Crusader Strike, Exorcism, and Judgment. On AoE you're going to be building holy power with Hammer of Righteous, Exorcism, and even on AoE, you're still going to use Judgment for the holy power anyway. The good thing is, to go along with the fact that you can build on AoE and build on single target, you can now spend in both of those same ways as well. So Templar's Verdict is still your big single target spender, and it's worth noting that this does not scale with holy power anymore. You have to have 3 holy power to use it. So if you've ever accidentally pressed Templar's Verdict before you had 3 holy power, you haven't got to worry about that anymore because it's not physically possible. And now Divine Storm has changed in such a fantastic way because it's actually changed to be a spender. And the reason this feels really good is because of talents like Divine Purpose. Divine Purpose in general hasn't changed, so abilities that cost holy power have got a 25% chance to cause Divine Purpose. This basically means you're going to be able to use a 3 holy power ability for free. So getting Divine Purpose procs and being able to use back-to-back Divine Storms just feels absolutely amazing on cleave damage. And don't worry when you look at Exorcism and see it only does single target. Once we get to the Glyph section that I want to talk about in a couple of points' time, it will make sense. But not only all of that, Inquisition is so much easier to keep up now as well, because each holy power you spend gives you 20 seconds. So if you spend it with 3 holy powers, it's up for a whole minute. It gives you 30% holy damage and 10% crit chance as well, which is very nice. And there is even an Inquisition glyph, which is pretty cool, which when you land a killing blow on an opponent that yields experience or honor, the duration of your Inquisition is increased by 30 seconds. Now there's plenty of ad fights throughout Mist of Pandaria, so if you get the killing blow on one of those ads, it's going to give you 30 seconds extra on your Inquisition, which is really, really nice. Ret in general, if you enjoy it in Cataclysm, you're going to love it in Mist of Pandaria because it just feels so much better, and it is genuinely really fun to play. Okay, coming in at number 5 has got to be Double Hands, because there's a talent called Clemency, where you can use Hand of Freedom, Hand of Protection, Hand of Sacrifice, and Hand of Salvation twice each before incurring their cooldowns. Now this is absolutely huge, especially when we think more about Hand of Sacrifice than any of the others, because Hand of Sacrifice is a 30% damage reduction, and now you can use this back to back, so it lasts 12 seconds, you can literally keep 30% damage reduction on a target for 24 seconds on a 2-minute recharge timer. Now of course being able to do double Hand of Protections to save people, double Hand of Freedoms to be able to get people out of stuff is also absolutely amazing. But again, when we talk about a few glyphs in a minute, which I want to cover, Hand of Sacrifice and having two of them is absolutely amazing. I would say more so as Holy and Retribution. I think for protection, Unbreakable Spirit is a lot better, because with Unbreakable Spirit, you can reduce the cooldown of your Divine Protection by 50%, which means it comes down to a 30-second cooldown, which of course, as a tank, having a 30-second cooldown is lovely. But if you don't need that 30-second cooldown, Clemency should always be a consideration, because being able to have double 30% damage reductions on, let's say, your off tank or your main tank, if you're the off tank, is still super strong. And then coming in at number 6 is Auras have gone now. So there's no longer an aura bar, instead you have a seal bar. So seals no longer last a specific duration, instead they're just toggled on and off. You've still got things like Seal of Truth for single target, Seal of Righteousness for AoE, and Seal of Insight now increases casting speed by 10% and increases your healing spells by 5%, as well as when you're hitting with it, it's also healing a wounded party or raid member. Seal of Justice has also had a bit of a rework, where now it deals 20% additional damage and reduces the target's movement speed by 50% for 8 seconds, so pretty much just perma slowing. And really there's not much more to say than that. It's just a real nice quality of life change. You haven't got to worry about auras anymore or anything like that. And if you're like, oh no, what are we going to do about resistance aura? Resistances in general have all been removed. Priests don't get shadow protection anymore. Shamans don't get it from putting healing stream totem down with a glyph. All resistances in that form have gone. But number 7 in the top 10 is actually still an aura. And you're like, you just told us auras all went. Well, yeah, but you've still got one. And it's Devotion Aura. So this is not an aura how you're used to auras. This is actually a cooldown. So this really could be compared to Aura Mastery. It's on a 3-minute cooldown. It grants everyone immunity to silence and interrupt effects, and reduces all magic damage taken by 20%, and it lasts 6 seconds. So this is basically your raid cooldown as a paladin. The great thing is this isn't just for Holy. All 3 specs get this. And to be fair, 20% damage reduction is a really strong cooldown. And in a 25-man raid, it's quite likely you're going to have 1, maybe 2, even 3 paladins. It don't matter what specs you bring, they all get the 20% magic damage reduction. And there are a couple of fights where even the silence aspect of it are pretty good. Number 8 is a few very notable glyphs. In general, with the removal of prime glyphs, glyphs don't really give that much damage to any class, really. It's all about utility. But for certain specs, there's a few outliers, and I think the paladin glyphs are particularly strong. So for Retribution, when I was talking about exorcism earlier, there's Glyph of Mass Exorcism. Now this reduces the range of exorcism to melee, so you can't use it at ranged anymore, but it causes 25% of the damage to hit all enemies within 8 yards of the primary target. Now, Exorcism hits like an absolute truck, so the fact that 25% of that is going to cleave on everything around it is absolutely massive. And it's part of the reason I love playing Ret Paladin, being able to use Mass Exorcism, being able to hammer the righteous, getting procs with Divine Storm, so you can bang them back to back. It just feels fun. It feels dynamic, fast, flowing. It's amazing. So amazing too much, man. And then when we were talking about Hand of Sacrifice earlier, you was probably thinking, well, yeah, it's a 30% damage reduction, but I'm going to take the damage. Well, no, you won't, because Glyph of Hand of Sacrifice is, guess what? It's amazing. It no longer redirects damage to the Paladin. So now you can use Hand of Sacrifice as long as you've got this Glyph as just a flat 30% damage reduction. And if you're running Clemency, you can pop them back to back, totaling 24 seconds. That's so overpowered. And if there's any fights you're going to be using Hand of Sacrifice, of course you want to be using this glyph. And in general, you're not going to be losing anything by using this glyph either. And then the final glyph would be for protection, and it's Glyph of Consecration. Well, now you no longer have to plant Consecrate at your feet. You can put Consecrate down anywhere you want, as long as it's within 25 yards. So basically, as a prop paladin, you now have your very own Consecrate version of Death and Decay. All 3 of these glyphs are so powerful or so unique that they had to make it into the top 10 as well. And as we've spoke about how Retribution changed massively, let's talk about how protections changed, because quite honestly, outside of a few little tweaks, Holy Paladin on the most part plays the same, whereas Protection gets a lot of changes. You also gain in Holy Power from Judgment, Grand Crusader changing so your Avenger's shield usage is just so much higher, because now whenever you dodge or parry a melee attack, you've got a 30% chance of refreshing the cooldown, and if you use it within 6 seconds of it resetting, You also get a holy power as well. The holy power generation there obviously is the same as Cataclysm, but up to now it's been when you're dealing damage with Crusader Strike or Hammer of Righteous, you've got a chance, and it's only when it hits the primary target as well. Whereas now, when you've got lots of ads on you and you're doing a lot of dodges and parries, you're getting this reset very, very often. And actually just being able to put out tons of self-healing, because even running Seal of Insight is a good idea because you're increasing the healing that you're doing on yourself and occasionally giving yourself some self-heals. Obviously, for max damage, you're still going to be between Seal of Truth and Seal of Righteousness, but for survivability, Seal of Insight is actually a solid seal to use. But now you have serious options, because in general, you're going to be running Eternal Flame, which we spoke about already, that replaces your Word of Glory, and you're going to be massively increasing the amount of healing this does, and because it puts a hot on you, you're going to want this up pretty much all the time. But Shield of the Righteous has now changed, so it costs 3 holy power to use, it does a massive amount of holy damage, and then reduces the physical damage that you take based on your mastery. For me, for example, it's 43%. Now, this also gives you Bastion of Glory, so this is going to increase the strength of either your Eternal Flame or Word of Glory, if you're not using Eternal Flame for some reason, by 27%, but again, affected by mastery, and this stacks 5 times. So at moments of high damage, you're going to want to be using Shield of Righteous to reduce your physical damage by a huge amount, and of course, making sure that you're using big Eternal Flames to self-heal, and in some cases, even raid heal. But what your mastery does is increases the damage reduction of your Shield of Righteous by X amount of percentage, and also adds X amount of percentage to your Bastion of Glory. But not only that, it also increases your chance to block melee attacks as well, and like you can see, mine's 17% of all of those, and I'm only sat on just under 6k mastery without even Blessing of Might. Put Blessing of Might on and that just gave another 5% to all of those. But in general, protection just plays really well. The thing is, it feels a little bit clunky in the opening phase of content, just because of those low levels of haste. But by midway through the expansion, I do really think Protection Paladins are going to be the go-to tank, because you can get so much haste that you're just getting loads of holy power, doing massive Shield of the Righteous damage, and obviously keeping up that physical damage reduction for such big periods, and your self-healing and just general healing you throw out on other people with Eternal Flame is going to be humongous, because remember, you're going to gain spell power equal to 50% of your attack power is going to be going up massive amounts from Vengeance, so your self-healing is just going to be sky high. And then finally, number 10. I've got to be honest, not the most exciting one to finish with, but if you've played Paladin for a long time, you know they've been renowned for being the wheelchair class. Well, now actually they've got really good movement. While it's not been that bad for Ret or even as holy in Cataclysm, protection has always been lacking without having engineering for rocket boosts. Until now, your level 15 talents are movement talents, and they're really, really good. For Retribution, you've had Long Arm of the Law for a long time now, where when you Judgment, you get movement speed, but if you put Judgment on a target that was like 15 yards or further away from you, well, now you're just going to get it all the time. It's a 45% movement speed increase for 3 seconds. Now, as Protection and Ret, you're going to be using Judgment a lot, and even more as the expansion goes on, so you can pretty much have this 45% up whenever you're going to need it, which is pretty cool. Speed of Light is a proper sprint, so it's 70% movement speed increase for 8 seconds, but it's on a 45-second cooldown. Or finally, you've got Pursuit of Justice, where you just get 15% movement speed at all times, but then you get 5% extra movement speed for each holy power charge you've got up to 3. So in total, you're going to be able to move 30% faster at all times if you've got 3 holy power. The thing is, you're going to be wanting to spend your holy power as quick as you're gaining it, so really you'd be taking this just for the permanent 15% movement speed. For me personally, as Prot and Ret, I absolutely love Long Arm of the Law and use it almost exclusively, but when I'm leveling or I'm out in the open world, I just use Pursuit of Justice and always run around with 3 holy power. And that's it. That's not every single change to Paladin. That's not a super in-depth guide for Protection or Retribution or even Holy. It's just a bit of an overview and what I consider the most impactful changes in Mr. Pandaria. And as someone who's played a Paladin for a very long time, I can honestly say that every change that we've spoke about I absolutely love, and I see absolutely no negatives to a Paladin whatsoever. If you enjoy a Paladin in Cataclysm, you're going to love it in Mr. Pandaria. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Consider joining the channel as a member and join these people scrolling down on the screen, or pick yourself a Rested XP guide up for the fastest way to level in in Cataclysm at the moment, and then Mr. Pandaria when we finally get the MoP guide launched. That is an affiliate link, so any guides bought do support the channel, so thanks in advance for that. Check out the merch shop as well, that's brand new. Man, I'm plugging so much at the end, I'll just go. See you on the next one.